Welcome to my paranormal vault. Today you will be witnessing a little bit more of my work, which I will continue to share. That is the whole point of this. What you're about to see is myself, Emilia Busse, and Lee Allen. Lee Allen is a part of the Ghost Hunters and Ghost Nations team. He is also their major tech guy. He's also an empath and a psychic like myself. And he's going to share some experiences with you, and you get to witness some of the conversations that we have after that of sharing cases and details. You can see Lee Allen in Ghost Nations in the episodes An Unholy Haunting, which is also a place that I investigated as well, and will be back in the middle of April. Another is Trapped in Terror and Ghosts of War. He is a wonderful man, and he has a lot of spiritual knowledge and insight. Let's go ahead and begin. About the experience that you told me when you saw the light with your baby.
Oh yeah, when he was passing away.
Yeah.
When my son passed away and he was in my arms.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was August 14th, 1998. My little boy was born, and when he was born, the nurses was in the room when we were sharing, passing him around. Everybody was in there. Like, I think it was my wife at the time, her mom, her grandma, my mom and sister, and they were, passing him around, holding him. And then all of a sudden we noticed that he was turning blue. And the nurse saw that and says, I need to take him. So I didn't get to hold him. So I had to follow her to a room, and they called the doctor in, and they checked his heart rate, and his heart rate was very low. It was like, I think the number I remember seeing was 63, and they were explaining to me that the number should be like really high, like for a child that's just born. So I'm like, oh no. So I said, so what's going on? They's like, well, I'm getting the doctor in. So we went back to the room, and they came back in a little later, and they decided that they're going to transport him to a heart hospital. Well, they did that night, and so I left to go to that hospital. But as I was leaving, they said, no, we can't keep him there. We're going to have to care flight him all the way to Cincinnati, Ohio. This was up in Dayton. Now they're going to care flight him to Cincinnati, to Children's Hospital. So me and my mom goes, and I beat them there before he got there. And so they brought him in, and they put him to a ventilator and all that stuff. And then they found out, like, through that night that he had beta, an infection from his mom at birth. And so he was in there for almost 2 weeks until they did surgery. And when they did to get rid of the beta, and then after the beta was gone, they did surgery. And they told us what they were going to do is they were going to go into his heart and stop his heart rate and blood flow, and put in, because hypoplastic left heart is a heart infection disease where the left side of the heart wasn't fully developed. So what they did is they put a shunt, a little small tube, in from the other chambers of the heart to connect, so the blood would stop flowing and go the opposite way, so this would work. And he said it's a long procedure. He goes, and he said it's about 13 to 15 hour surgery. I was like, wow. So then they got him ready to do it the next morning. And as we were sitting there talking the night before, I was like, so what's the chances of, we wanted to know the good and the bad. He goes, well, he says, what's going to happen, Lee, is at least we can get stuff rolling. He felt very confident in this procedure. He said, then what we'll have to do is we'll just have to see how he grows with his heart. But this whole floor that you're on where he's at, it's all kids with heart problems. And so he says, we just don't know until time passes. So, after that, we scheduled it for the morning. So I was talking to some of the families that were there, and similar, cases. there's a boy there. It's 4 years old. It's waiting on a heart. So we knew we had a lot to go through for him to be healthy. So the surgery started early in the morning. And at that time, there was a lot of family and friends there. And they would come out periodically and tell us, the process and what's going on. Finally, like late at night, I remember it was like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, they finally got it done. And they said, all things are looking great. He's got the ventilator. His chest is open just in case we have to go back into his chest. We're not going to sew it closed right now until we're not out of the woods yet. That's what the doctor said. So we stayed at the hospital. And that morning, things were looking good. Things were, I felt confident. And, I went to a little chapel in the church and had my moment with God and talking to him. And I just put it in his hands. And as I go back, everybody wanted to go get some breakfast. And I was like, well, I'm going to go in and sit with him. And he was in this little bed thing, and he had all these machines hooked up to him. And so I'm standing there, and my father-in-law at the time, he decided to stay with me. So we're standing there, and in the hallway, we go back in the hallway for a minute, and they leave, and then the doctor comes in and says, it's not looking good for Austin. So he says, you guys can come on in. Well, what was happening was his blood pressure and his heart rate was going way down. And the ventilator was on, so the ventilator should have been doing all this work, and it did not work. And they looked at me and they said, at this time, Mr. Allen, you got to make the call, because I said, well, my wife isn't up here, they're all downstairs. And he goes, well, it's not looking good. So I had to call it, and they stopped the machines and all that stuff. And so I sat in a rocking chair by the bed. And as I'm sitting there in the rocking chair by the bed, I'm just like spaced out. Like, this cannot be real. This is a dream. I'm going to wake up anytime. And this is going to be fake. So they wrapped him up in a little blanket. They put this little beanie cap on him. And I remember a shirt I was wearing. I was wearing a white t-shirt, Las Vegas, Hard Rock, Las Vegas. He puts him in my arms. His head was laying on my left arm. And to my left, there was a window that was probably 12 inches wide, and it went from ceiling to floor, the whole length of the room, the height of the room. And I'm rocking him, and my father-in-law had his hand on my arm, and we prayed. Are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here, my love.
That's okay. We prayed, and I just looked down, and I kissed his little forehead. He had the beanie on, and I said, Lord, I said it out loud. I said, Lord, this can't be real. And all of a sudden, it got real bright in the room. And that light to my left was coming from that window. And a little bit about that window before that happened. If you looked out that window in the hospital, all you would see is like big mechanical machines on top of the roofs. And then the hospital went higher. So that was like inside a little cubby area. And the brightness hit. And I looked down, and his little eyes opened. And he smiled. And then he just tilted his head towards my chest. My father-in-law saw that. I saw that. The nurse that was in the room across the way, she's actually blown away. And I know that everything was at peace and everything was okay. But that was a weird experience to ever go through. But at that time, before that happened, I was like, I don't even get to watch my son grow up. I don't get to see what kind of person he's become. All my dreams I had for him is shattered. My life is upside down. So when that happened, my life did turn upside down. I got high blood pressure. Never had high blood pressure before in my life. I was an athletic person, playing football, baseball, basketball. I was always doing something in school.
I love you.
Never in a million years would I expect that to happen to me. And after that, I just started seeing things different in life. Instead of what the natural, normal human being sees in life. I opened up all of my third eye. I definitely opened my third eye. I started seeing things more clearly than what I normally seen. Stuff that I pushed off. Found out that I was an empath. Um, Opened the doors to the paranormal. Um, with life and death, experiencing it changed me. So helping others is different than just, going in and trying to help somebody I've never experienced it, but now I can say I have. So that helps me out a lot when I help others.
Yeah.
Um, Knowing that there is a higher power than us, something that we have no control of, is different. Knowing that we're all learning in the paranormal field of what's next. My opinion on everything is we can go out here and we can sense things, we can feel things. That's higher power than any equipment that's being made for paranormal investigating.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care who you are. If you can make the baddest piece of equipment, but the good Lord's not going to let us see everything.
Yeah.
Not until it's our time.
Yeah.
So we can go as far as we want to go in the field until I think it's you're not. My opinion is you're not going to see it until it's your time to cross over. And then you're going to be like, oh, now I know why I couldn't, do this and do that, because it's not meant to be.
Right.
But yeah, seeing that bright light, uh, I see that all the time now because I do a lot of crossovers in the field when I'm in
Me too.
homes and businesses and helping others, and I see these. I don't care if it's a child or if it's an adult. If they're lost, they're lost.
Yeah.
I don't care how mad. I don't care how mad people get that own the home or the business and say, "I can't believe that you crossed over that
I
spirit."
know.
Well, who gives you the right to keep them in the building because you can make $1? I
I
don't think so.
agree. I agree with that. I have to deal with it all the time. I agree
So
with
the
you,
spirits,
honey.
yeah. So if I can help the living and the dead, I'm going to help both sides. It's like I tell people how I see things is I'm on a fence and I'm sitting on a fence and I'm straddled over the fence and I'm helping. I'm on one side's helping the living and then the other side's helping the dead. And I prefer to help the dead than I do the living because
Yeah,
the living scares the hell out of me.
me too. Well, I actually left. I pretty much left social media regarding the paranormal, and I released a documentary last night as to why. And what I'm doing now is just private stuff. And, like with
Yeah.
you and Adam and my apprentice and students, private.
Mm-hmm.
I won't do the social media anymore. And, you know, and I love you for that. That's, one thing we've always kind of both saw eye to eye on is
Yep.
and we've been kind of tortured in this field in a sense.
Oh
It's
yeah. Oh
just
yeah.
brutal
Absolutely.
out there. And we've experienced more than a lot of these kids, these novice
Oh.
investigators
Oh
out
yeah.
there, and it's just it's sad, but I agree with you. And I love you,
Mm-hmm.
so much and unconditionally. And
Love you too. Yep.
I was in tears when you were telling me this. I know it couldn't have been easy for you, but it's gonna help
Oh yeah.
one day.
Every time I talk about it, it helps, and it can help somebody out there that you know that needs the help. That
Yeah.
like wow, okay, and if you run across anybody that wants to talk, I'm always when I was going through the situation, I'd always go to like groups, and I would these little group meetings around, and I'm like, wow, there are more people out there that are going through the same thing as me.
Yep.
Um,
There are.
and you can share that with anybody. You can give them my information, tell them to
Okay.
call me, email me, whatever. I'm here to help. I'm an open ear.
Okay.
Um,
You're so wonderful,
Absolutely.
Lee. I love you so much, and it means
Love
a
you.
lot to me. And what's interesting too is that you're such your experience is so unique because we go through these challenging times, like we were talking about the other night. That's what makes us better people.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have other cases who, they're private, but like one woman, her spouse, he shot himself right in front of her, and he didn't die. And so I've been helping her through the entire horrific situation and the demonic things she saw right after. And then she saw him. And I want to tell you the story over, some coffee
Sure.
or drinks at some point. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you now, it's a little bit
Yeah.
gory. Do you want to know?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I'm
Okay.
intrigued now.
I know. And well, I'm in such a peaceful place. You're rocking, I'm rocking, the birds and
Yeah.
chimes. Well, I get a phone call and a bunch of messages regarding this paranormal novice paranormal investigator in Texas. And they send me what she posted on social media. And I was like, well, I don't really deal with it anymore. I definitely don't really do any paranormal stuff on there anymore. If anything, it's just more of a community and I help people, but that's it. But I was like, I'll look into this. So I messaged her and she said it was her friend in Louisiana who who's being demonically attacked. So I said, okay, well, let's have a meeting today and I'll cancel some other meetings because this is a high priority situation. This is what I do. I either deal with demons and that kind of case, or I deal with crossing over souls and reaching out and all of that angelic stuff. And so, which is why the angels always said we can see the Christ. He stays in the light all the time, send souls to the Lord, that kind of thing. I think I sent them to you, but anyways, she says, yes, please, thank you so much. So I have a meeting with her, and I mean, she's kind of, you could tell she's a little bit overwhelmed and she's talking very fast and she's like, oh, at that kind of level. So she tells me the details and it's bad. So I say, I would like to speak to this woman directly in Louisiana. So I get her on the phone. Here's what she tells me. The man, he's a Southern man. He worked on explosives, that kind of thing. Keep note of that for what you're about to hear. He had never hit her. He had never abused her. They were madly in love. Madly in love. One night he had come home. He wasn't drinking, she said, but he was having some issues. I think with depression and anxiety and some other things. And he had asked her, or she offered one of the ways. I think it was an Ambien or a Xanax. It was one of those. I cannot recollect. And we know how those can go with people's mentality. It can cause a lot of things to happen, especially when you're drinking. Well, she tells me all of a sudden they get into an argument. He beats the hell out of her. He's like 6 foot something. She's really small. After it happens, they're fighting. He's in the living room. She's in the bedroom. He wants her to leave. She winds up falling asleep on the bed, waiting, I guess, for someone to come get him or her. She wakes up to the sound of what she thought was a firecracker, but he had shot himself. She didn't know, so she calls his name a few times. He doesn't respond. She opens the door. He's on the couch. His head's back. He's gurgling blood. She calls the ambulance. They're like, get him on the ground, do this, do that. So this is happening very fast. So she's small, so she's trying to get this big man on the ground. She said his head sounded like a watermelon. She said her dog was in there with him when it happened, which was extremely unusual. The dog would always stay by her. So when she gets him on the ground, the dog actually goes and attacks his scalp severely and starts ripping his scalp off. So she's punching the dog in the eyes just severely to where the dog's eyes were bloody and almost gone because she couldn't get the dog off his scalp. At the same time, the police bust in, guns, and all. She's covering the dog and him and saying, please don't shoot, please don't shoot. He didn't make it. all this stuff happens. The very next night, she's sitting out in the backyard by a bayou, the water. It's dark. She sees a glimmering phosphorescent light. She called it a flashing light, kind of like with a mirror, but it generally is a glimmering phosphorescent light. She saw it out the corner of her eye. So she looks over. She sees him. She couldn't believe it. She said he was completely, in my words, manifested. She said he was translucent, but she said she could see his boots, his pants, as well as his, she could see his plaid shirt. And she said that he looked at her. And when he did, he gave this grin that he always gives out of love and just, his character. And then he turned around, he walked away, and he faded. So she turns around. This woman's gone through a lot. She's traumatized. She couldn't believe it, but she found peace. And she said when this happened, she had gone out there to find peace, and she would turn on these ambient sounds that him and her liked. And that's when it happened. So after she saw him and he faded away, she turned around and she goes inside. She's at the bottom of the stairwell. She gets the feeling. She looks up the stairwell and she sees a black mass manifesting directly in front of her eyes. She said it started out as kind of like an anthropomorphic humanoid shape, but the legs and the arms grew out of it, and they were completely pointy at the bottom. And I've seen things like this. And she said the head started to manifest in form, and it almost looked like it had a top hat, but she couldn't really tell. And I asked her, I was like, "Well, what happened next?" And she said she was just standing still, watching it. So she said it very slowly, she said it was extremely, just eerie slowly, turned its head towards where she could see her deceased spouse, partner. And she said when she moved, it bolted its head back towards her and then bolted towards her, split into two beams, knocked her back extremely hard. And then it hit a chair, knocked the chair into the concrete, and broke it. Later down the road, after going to court, she had to see his brains and everything on the table and all this. She went to a hotel. This affected her so badly that she didn't want people around her. She thought she was the reason. And so her friend that she knew for over 30 years eventually came to her room at the hotel, said, "You're going to come live with us." So now she's living with him. I met him and his family in the home, an old lady and some other folks. Well, him and her were telling me that they saw the being again. That this man, he saw it as well. She couldn't believe somebody else was seeing it. She said it was following her. So what happened next was, as she's telling me things, I'm picking up all these things. And one specific thing I kept hearing the angel say was, "It's in the closet." The closet. And so I asked her about it. She's like, "We leave the light on. There's something in the closet all the time. Things are always happening. All kinds of stuff." So I speak to her for, I'm in this meeting for about 4 hours. And I have the novice paranormal investigator part of it as well, so she can kind of experience and learn. So here's what happened next. I start picking up on things. I definitely can confirm that she is under a diabolical oppression, and it's stalking her. So in order to prove this to her, I pulled my recorders out and I prayed. I recorded it. I'm going to release it for my students soon. And I said, "Angels, I need you to go to her house and tell me what's there." And I kept picking up different things. Well, they told me, I let her listen back to it. They were just in shock. They said that a man named Tom who was deceased, was there, and I asked her, I was like, do you know someone named Tom who died? Because he's there with you. And she asked the man who she's living with. She didn't. She asked him. He said, yes, my friend named Tommy just passed away and I didn't go to the funeral. I said, well, he's there. I also asked the angels. I said, did Dave, which is the man who passed away, who shot himself, I said, did Dave cross over to the light? Because I'm not sure if he did. I don't feel like he did. And I thought I heard them with my own ears say that he didn't. So during the recording, I said, can you confirm this? Dave comes through and he says, I'm haunting her. He says my love to her, and that he didn't cross over. The angel said no directly after I asked this question. And as I asked them to come back from her house, there's more things that were said, but they said they need to purge. And whenever they told me this over the past 3 decades, it always means that they need to do a cleansing and they need to be blessed, because that's going to help this diabolical situation, because she's also concerned about the people she's living with and strange emotional things that have taken place. And so they tell me this, and I say to them, what did you see? As soon as they get back, I said, tell me what you saw. They said, we did see the demon. The demon's coming. And as I'm recording this, she tells me right when I turn it off, because I told them to mute their microphones. I need absolute silence to be able to pick up every word that the angels or spirits are saying. She tells me, before I even play it back, she's like, I feel it coming. I feel it coming. I feel the demon coming. And I'm like, well, they confirm that. They confirm what empaths, clairvoyants, and psychics feel. It's one of the things I always ask them to do for me is what I'm feeling. I need them to confirm. And so they said at the exact same time that she was waving me down on mute, wanting to tell me this, they confirmed it, that it was coming. It was coming closer to the house. And there was a lot more after that, and there was a lot more said prior to that. They told me that she was being honest and things like that. And, it's a case I'm working on right now. It's a high priority case, and she's just extremely emotional and traumatized from this. She was up all night that night. I'm scared, I'm upset, and, I couldn't get to her because I was in another meeting. I worked for 24 and a half hours that day. I never went to bed. I was so tired.
Wow.
Yeah, I do that sometimes. I have so many clients and students. And so the next day, the novice paranormal investigator, her name is Amberlyn, she messages me. She's like, look, she's really upset. She's sending me screenshots and of the messages. I'm like, it's okay. I'll call her right now. And I generally, usually have a work line for this kind of thing, but I was so concerned about this woman. I was like, I'm just going to call her. So I called her, and we were on the phone for 3 hours, and I was explaining to her, exactly how this works with what we see, when we see the light, when angels speak of it, and how often spirits speak of seeing it inside of someone or around someone, and how when they see it opening up from psychics, that they see angels. And I had to send her the proof where they're like, Emilia, we can see the angels. Emilia, we want the light. Emilia, please send us to the Lord. Emilia, please pray. There's demons coming. There's black devils coming. And angels will say, you need to cross over the souls now. Send them to the Lord. And then spirits will start talking. You'll hear them all talk at the same time sometimes. And one time I asked them, well, what is psychic abilities? I was like, where does it come from? Why can I see and hear and feel the things that I do? And I recorded them. I literally recorded their entire conversations. They said, well, how they're talking to each other, and they say, how do we explain this to her? And it captures that, and they're like, it's a blessing from God, from the Lord. And they say, I'm like, yeah, but what is it? What is it? And they say, you've been marked by the Lord. Not only that, but it's cosmic, galactic, and ethereal. You have angel light around you and in your bloodline. Let's look back at one of the sessions that I'm referring to. The entire session will be released soon.
What can you tell me about empaths, clairvoyance, psychic abilities? You have been mentioning a relic to me. Is there some kind of relic that I need to find? I can see angels in here. Okay. So, angelic blood. Is it people with psychic abilities, clairvoyance, empaths, things like that? Or is it certain people?
And I was like, so what, like the Nephilim? And they're like, no, it's something else. There are hybrids who are part angel, and priests do speak of this. And these hybrids will be awakened at near the end times, and that the priests have actually been talking about it recently. They believe that the hybrids come from I think it's Noah's daughter, that she had some kind of angelic blood in her, and the other side has confirmed all of these things, and all of it. They talk about the 7 seals. They talk about biblical stuff. They talk about heaven, the Lord. They talk about that crossing over the dead. They don't say spirits, they say the dead is a very important thing that psychics do who are very connected with the Lord, and that the Lord marks us on our forehead with an invisible line. It's just amazing, like the communication that I have, that I can't find anybody else who has this. And they said, I know this sounds crazy, but your family, honey, they said it's because I am a hybrid. I'm part angel, it's in my bloodline, and that I'm from the mother's immortal son, and that God what he wants me to do with this is cross over souls. They said, God wants you to send souls to him. Send them to the Lord. Your blood is angelic, and we have to fight together. Fight back in this holy war. Do not give up, no matter how hard it gets. He's like, the people are feeble. There's feeble people in this world. You wield something greater that God had given to you, and that's why your life has been so difficult. It's why you look different, which has always bothered me, And there's so much. I have just paragraphs and paragraphs, and I'm just now going to start releasing all of it. The apprentice and one other person are the only people who have ever seen every single seance and session and conversation over the last decade that I've had with them. And I used to go live, and I would allow people who were grieving or had questions about angels or God come in and just ask whatever they want. I would ask, they would answer.
Goliath here.
They said it was taught a lot was taught to me in the convent of the Lord, and it was either a past life or in heaven before I was sent here. They said that it was the same session when all these investigators across the world were saying that they could save fallen angels, and I was taught the opposite from the other side. And they said that Jesus was teaching me, and that he stands in the light behind me all of the time, and that they said we can see the Christ in the light. He stays in the light all the time. And like angels, because I've seen them, I know they're real. I have a picture of one. I said angels, I've always wondered too. I wouldn't do it unless God asked me to. But there's all these men who think that they should save fallen angels. And I know that angels are the sons of God. It says it in the Bible. So I asked very simply, I was like, what can you tell me? Or can a fallen angel be repented? I mean, would God forgive him? I mean, he clearly didn't destroy them. He put the first collective unit of fallen angels into the pit of darkness to await judgment day, and then another set of fallen angels came about after the flood with Noah. It's all taught in demonology and with priests and exorcists that I work with. And then that's when they say the devil won't repent. They didn't say God wouldn't forgive him. They said, and they called him the devil. They didn't call him Samael. They didn't call him Lucifer. They didn't call him a fallen angel. They said the devil won't repent. And they said quite a few things after that. You know, what was taught to me in this convent that I came from, and all of this stuff in heaven, and I'm talking like a good hour of just them talking to me, and you hear everything they're saying. I mean, it was my apprentice and, the other gentlemen, which were just blown away. And I did it live. There's just so much, and it's so much deeper for me. I'm not a ghost hunter. I'm something else. And I'm not going to chase humanity anymore. I'm going to teach what I know and show what is completely undeniable at this point. They still talk to me. All I do is turn the recorder on, and these angels still help me. and they'll say, we love you, and the Lord is very proud of you. And, like they have mentioned, like black magic. They said the devil likes black magic, black witchcraft. They've talked about the pearl gates. I've seen them twice. And there's spirits that have come through who have said, we can see the pearl gates. We can see the pearl gates. And it's not actual pearls on there. It's the way that they look. And when I start to cross over, and I know that this happens with you, they'll say, we can see the angels coming down, Emilia. And then these angels will speak, and they sound very different than an anthropomorphic soul, a human soul. They have very strong voices, very different than ours. And they say, Emilia, you are crossing over the dead. They are going up. They are going with the Lord now. We are proud of you. And I'll share more with you one day. I don't think I've ever talked it over. But I think, yeah, I love you, so I trust you.
Absolutely. I love you, and you should trust me. I trust you.
You've seen shadows too, haven't you?
I've seen shadows. I've seen things like with wings.
I have too.
Yeah.
I have too.
And that is cool. I've seen it at Waverly Hills Sanatorium, and I've seen it at a cemetery in another state. So 2 different states I've seen them, and I'm just like, wow, what is this? But like you said, the spiritual stuff, I feel like the spiritual stuff comes to me as well. And like you said, I'm more of the spiritual thing than more of a ghost hunter. I really don't care about that stuff. I just want to know more spiritual stuff. There's more to it than just what ghost hunter guys see, and it's like, no, that's not the reason of being in this.
Right. I agree with you 100%, my darling. Yeah. I really very, very strongly and deeply agree with you. And that's why I always say I'm not a ghost hunter. I'm something else. I don't have to.
Yeah, if you want more positive, sincere answers or more hard work, then get with me, because that's what I do.
Exactly. You'll learn a deeper understanding and fundamental values. Yeah, when it comes to the spiritual world.